Hi everybody, Eric at FMLS with just a little trick that you can edit your displays in Matrix. So what I've done is I've just run a really quick search on some sold properties in a certain part of town here. And in my sold grid here, I would love it if I could see, for instance, closing costs paid by seller just as a column. So what I'm going to do is I'm always liking to use the address column as an example because there's this nice big fat gray area to the right of the word address that's kind of blank. See where my cursor's moving, and it's that little four-way arrow. So in that gray space, I'm going to click my mouse button, and there's a few things I can do. For instance, I can change the word address. So I always like to mention maybe English is not your first language. Maybe your brain just works a little faster in Spanish or Korean or something. So if you want to change that word to address to whatever it is in another language, go for it, for example. Or maybe you want to add the word street in front of the word address to say street address. So the first example, of course, being, as I'm showing you here, you can rename columns, but you can also resize them, justify them left, right, or center in the field, remove a column if you don't find it appropriate to have one there. And then also what we're wanting to accomplish here right now is insert a column. So again, I want to insert the cost paid by seller column. So if I click insert column, I get a big long list of all of the different bits of data that are available to me from the listing, from the sale, that kind of stuff. So I could scroll a lot through this big long list, but I'm a time saver and I think it's just easier if in the search box down below I start typing in the word cost, for instance. So after COS, I can see right here quickly, I just have the one field I'm looking for, cost paid by seller. I can select that, click apply, and now in my grid, right after the space that I inserted it, shows now the cost paid by seller. All right, so what you want to know next, I think, is that if I just did this right now, great, I've got the information. If I close Matrix, that column is not going to stay there. All right. So if you look at cost paid by seller all the time, and you would like this column to be used in your default grid, you always want to see this by default, every search you do. What you can do is up between the tabs that you're normally used to navigating through your searches and the grid itself are some fields, some icons over here that you can use to accomplish that. So the one all the way to the right is this little silver wheel or a cog or a gear, whatever you kind of want to think about that as. If you click on that little gear, you have an option here that says set current display, sort order, and count per page as my search starting default. So yeah, if you like the order of these columns, the way they're sorted, which columns you have in your display, and you want to make this your default, that's all you got to do right there. Bang. If I click on that, now from this point forward, every time I do a search by default, this is my grid. Okay. But let's just say you're not always looking at sold data. Maybe a lot of times you're looking at actives, right? You're helping buyers pick a home that they're going to move into. So closing cost paid by seller might be a little bit of a wasted space on your screen in that point. So rather than making this your default, you would just like to maybe save this as a grid that you can quickly flip back to, but not necessarily see every single time, right? So that's your second choice. The icon right next door is a little piece of paper with a pencil in front of it. It's kind of hard to see. It's a small icon. But if you click on that manage display icon, like I said, it's the page with the pencil on it. In the box, you might call it my solds grid. Okay. And you're going to press save as a copy. And now in your display box, you see now it's changed from agent single line to my solds grid. Now what that my insinuates, I suppose, is that you can have a number of custom grids. You might do a grid for a neighborhood. You might do a grid for a purpose, like I'm doing here for solds. But when you click on the down arrow, here's where you're going to see, normally if you've explored this is where you're going to see your photo galleries, different reports that you might look at. But when you see that it's always going to be the top of this list. Any custom grid that you create, you're going to access here. So you can always, of course, go back to the default agent single line, right? So if I close Matrix, for example, and come back in, just to kind of show you that. So if I go back to that search, this is my regular agent single line. And notice, as I mentioned, because I closed Matrix, that closing cost paid by seller is no longer there. But since I saved it a moment ago using that little paper with the pencil, I can click on this down arrow. There it is up at the top, my solds grid. Click on that, and now we're back. Okay. If you have any questions or problems, you can always contact our customer service department at 404-255-8660, option 1. They're available Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and Saturday, 9 to 5.